Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to do a landscape, and I'm using this new set of watercolors that I found on Amazon from the company Zen Art, and it has a bunch of brushes that come with it. I am going to need a larger brush to go with that though, but I was just kind of getting ready to review these paints, and probably by the time this tutorial comes out, the review will already be up. And I just wanted to do kind of a landscape to see how the colors flowed. I'm going to start by doing a little bit of sketching though, and I might as well use a cute little pencil that comes with it. And I'm going to do just kind of like a, kind of like a coastal Maine type of, pardon me, like landscape here. I'm going to have some rocks that just kind of like jut up and then kind of come down into the water here. I have my credit card scraper handy too, also for doing some rocks. No, you know me and my rocks. I like my rocks, man. I just really love rocks. I don't know why. I like the texture of it, I guess. It's gonna be mostly rocks and a little bit of water and some sky. That's okay. You gotta paint the things that inspire you, right? If it's rocks, it's rocks. If it's trees, it's trees. If it's people, animals, whatever. I have no idea why I'm kind of like froggy today. Hopefully it goes away. Just trying to make some nice patterns here. We have a lot of pine trees in our state, so we'll have a nice kind of pine tree coming out over here. I'm just going to mass it in. I'm going to do most of that with a paint. I just want to kind of give it a little bit of a shape there. More a Christmas tree type one that will have some foliage kind of coming down in here. All right, I think that's all we really need to get going. I'm going to start off, I'm going to use this oval wash. This is by Menta. These are a very affordable brush. And I'm going to just wet the sky and water area. So I'm going to try to stay away from the rocks, actually, but I'm going to go down over the horizon. And I'm just going to kind of go in between these rocks because I'll want to be using some of the same colors both places. And I like to do, if I have something with a reflection, like water, I like to do it all together because I just feel like it looks a lot more natural. Now the sky's not super dark, so I'm just going to go right over those trees because I'll be able to paint on top of those no problem. The key is that I want to have a nice uniformly wet surface so that my paint will flow. And these paints do flow pretty well. I'm still trying to figure out what they remind me of. They kind of remind me of the Renaissance half pans, but they're I don't know, they seem a little bit more matte. They kind of smell like the Doodle Hog and Master's Touch pans, but they're much more transparent, much more vibrant, have much more movement. So I really haven't, and they're made in Korea, so I haven't really figured out exactly what their deal is, but I like them. I like them for sure. All right, so I'm going to start off with a little bit of yellow up here in my sky. And then I'm going to pick up some kind of crimson color. And I'll bring some of that down into my water area. Let's take some of this crimson on its own. Let's see if that's not quite pink enough. I'm going to go for some of the quinacridone rose, I think. Add a little crimson to it, maybe. So we'll dry, just like with any watercolors, it will dry a little bit lighter. So, and we're on wet paper, so the wetter the paper, the more shift you're going to get when it dries. So you just want to kind of keep that in mind. And the reference photo I'm working from is kind of pale, so I'll probably want to pump it up a little bit anyway. And I think I'll do a little bit ultramarine blue because that's less likely to go green. A little bit of that up at the top. And some of that here in the water area. Oh, my apologies. I've been working on college stuff with my girls all morning. I'd gone upstairs to refill my water, and my girls were free, so I'm like, well, let's get some of this stuff done while you guys don't have anything else going on. Just some forms that you have to, vaccine forms, all that sort of stuff. You have to get sent in, and I'm not a last minute person. I like to get stuff done like as soon as possible because I don't like things weighing on my shoulders like that. And I have one child that's like that and one child that is not. But it was one that is not that wanted to get stuff done, so I'm like, let's do it. I'm going to take some of the ultramarine. I'm actually going to mix it with some of these other colors I already have going to get my clouds. I'll take a little bit of this brown here. It's weird. This set had 2 additional colors that were not like, it said it only came with 20, it came with 24, but there was like 2 extra colors in there. I'm not sure why. It's kind of funny. Maybe so that you could swap them out, or maybe they were going to be changing colors. Yeah, the clouds are definitely more blue in the sky. I think I might need to actually take in a little bit of like a more of like a cobalt blue color. That's looking really dark, but oh, maybe not. So I'm going to put the clouds in the water area first, just to kind of make sure it looks all right. I feel like if the reflection's not perfect, that's not that big of a deal, but I don't want to mess up the stuff in the sky, because the sky is so pretty. Skies are fun. Skies, I think, are great things to warm up with because you've got to kind of work quickly, and I feel like the sky is a really important part of a landscape a lot of times, especially a seascape, that if you're going to mess it up, you might as well mess it up right off the bat, right? You might as well mess up fast, and then you can try it again, right? Rather than having like your entire painting, all these like crazy details done, it's gorgeous, and then you're like, oh, I've got to paint the sky. Yeah, you don't want to be messing up at the end. You want to, if you're going to fail, you want to fail quick and fail fast. That's my theory anyway. Oh, I think that's pretty. A few more of the clouds in the water. And then at this point, I recommend letting it dry before you go on to the rocks, and also let it dry so you don't get any, let it do its thing. It's very tempting to kind of go and fuss and putter and pick. Don't. Just set it aside, let it dry, and then come back and we'll work on the rocks. Hello, welcome back. It's been a while. I always start painting and then like it gets really loud here. I want to do some rocks, so I'm going to go to a flat brush. This is the, it says number 14, it's about a 1/2 inch. And is it about a 1/2 inch or maybe even, yeah, about a 1/2 inch. We do have some, you know, dark colors in here. I like to mix though, because I'm not a big fan of raw umber. That's the brown that is in the set of 24, but it also came with another brown that I think I prefer, but because see how raw umber kind of has that greenish tone to it. It's not bad. I think I will use it, but I think I'm also going to want, I'll take some of this, it almost looks like a burnt umber. It's a little bit more rich. And then I can add a little bit of ultramarine blue to that to darken it. I could add black, but I've already used some ultramarine blue, so I might as well keep using what I've been using. If you can reuse colors in your palette, your work was going to be a little bit fresher. So I'm just going to go through and carve. Wasn't that pretty? That's a pretty color. Just kind of carve in some of the shadows. There's such a reflection on the water that you're almost getting like a mirror effect because it's really calm. So you're not going to see much, you know, you're not going to see through the water to see like the bottom parts of the rock. You're just going to kind of see bits of the rock kind of peeping over the top of the water, which is just kind of, it's just an interesting situation you have when you've got that really still water and you've got such a nice light toned sky like that. And it's always a good idea to observe either in real life or through your photographs or reference photos you find, because seeing these different lighting situations will help when you want to try to make up things from memory. You'll have a better idea of what can go where and what would make sense. Flat brushes are nice for rocks because especially coastal rocks like we have in Maine, they're just very harsh and rugged. They're not, isn't that pretty? That's such a pretty color. You know, they're much less rounded They're more cool toned and sharp and just rugged. All right. I also want to go ahead and get those trees in the background, and I think I'm going to use that fan brush and do kind of some Bob Ross style trees. I think I want to get myself a nice dark. I'm going to go with this Prussian blue. I don't think the pigment information is right in this palette. There's pigment information, but just looking at the pigment codes they're giving and comparing them with what I know these pigments to look like, I think several of them are off. And when you got several that are off, I would hesitate trusting them. And I think the paints are fine. I just think that they're add some sap green to that, tone it down a little bit. The sap green is kind of dull, so I don't like to use it just on its own. So I would definitely be cautious about those I honestly, I think I would just ignore them. I don't think that they are they're reliable. This brush is probably a little bit big to try to do trees in this far away, but if you twist your brush, you get some really cool textures and shapes. And then I'd go in with like a fine brush and then just kind of do the extra little the extra stuff that's needed. There, so you get the mass of it done with the fan brush. I think this fan brush would be really nice for like grasses and stuff. So now I'll take this one, I'll go with that same color. And just pull in a few. I'm not loving the greens in this set. I think I'll just go ahead and mix some. And I don't like, it says it's like PBK 7, which is a black pigment, is in so many of these different colors. And I think that is not the best. Like some of this really bright green. Sometimes I'll take phthalo green and orange and mix them together and make a really nice green, a really nice earthy looking green. I had a green, I think M. Graham used to make their green, their sap green with like, I think it was like PO20 and PG7 or PG36, I can't remember. But it was such a beautiful earthy green. So then I often will take an orange, mix it with a like a viridian hue or a phthalo green to get a really nice earthy green. I mean, pine greens aren't really that earthy. They're more blue. And then I can grab some of this really light, almost a May green. I think they call it phthalo green light, is what they called it in there. Phthalo yellow green is what they're calling it. And I can add some other foliage. You can watch a full review of this if you're interested in purchasing these paints, or I will have the links in the video description. There was a coupon where it made this palette $25 because it's like regular $40, and I think that's a good deal just with the palette itself, and all those little paints are individually wrapped, so like you could just get the palette, dump out the paints, and put your own paints in it for, I think that's not a bad deal for $25 for that palette. I have no problem with that. I think that's fine. Actually, I have no problem with the paints. The only issues, I do have a few issues with the paints, but for the price, I don't really expect that much. For the price to have, you know, to have no late fast information for the price. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily fault them for that. But I do think the light fast and the pigment information they're giving is not accurate. I'd kind of rather not have it than have it. And then again, I'm like, I don't work for these companies, but just what I know about different pigments, it seems unlikely that they're made, some of these colors are made from the pigments that they say. And if some of them are off, like how much can you trust the others is just all I'm saying. When you're doing rocks, less is more, meaning like try not to get too fussy with them. Some more grayish, do some more blue in there. Water that down. I also want some to have a little more yellow ochre in them. I love yellow ochre. I'm used to having my palette, my mixing area to my right of my painting, so this palette is kind of weird for that, but I think I would mainly use this as a travel palette. I don't know if I mentioned it in this video yet, because I tend to record the things that I'm using for tutorials, little demos that I do. I'll record them and post them later on, so I don't know if I mentioned it in this, but I'm going to take this with me on vacation. I'm going on a little trip with my daughters and some of their school friends and some of their parents. We're just having a nice little beach week, and I'm going to bring this with me, and that way if anybody wants to paint, because I'll probably, you know, I'm sure the kids will want to go play with the kids and play if they're like, you know, 18. I'm sure they all want to hang out with, you know, their peers, but I'm going to bring my paints. If anybody wants to paint with me, they can. Maybe other parents, maybe kids, I don't know. Maybe nobody. Might be a situation where all the parents take off and I'll be hanging out watching the kids, I don't know. Kids, they're not even... I know. Can we call them kids when they're that old? I don't know. Alright, I feel like I want a little bit of definition at the horizon line. I think I might want to actually try to erase my pencil marks there. I'm going to try it with a kneaded eraser and try not to disturb. Oh, you know what? It's probably locked under there. Yeah, I'm going to make a mess if I do that. I want to do something at the horizon line. Maybe... like, what color was it? This color here, it says it's that color plus black. Like, that would not make that color, so that's that seems highly unlikely. I just wanted to give a little definition there. Alright, I should have some foliage, but I think I need to let that dry a little bit more before I attempt any foliage. I think that I could use some branches in our faraway trees. These re-wet really well. Yeah, that's too wet to paint over. I'm going to dry this and we'll come back and we'll put on some finishing details. I really don't think it needs that much, so we got to balance that out though. That is so bright. We've got to bring some of that green elsewhere because that's just like, it's just too much. Alright, that didn't take long to dry with my heat tool. I'm going to go in with some of this darker color. Maybe add a little bit of ultramarine, a little bit of burnt umber to that, darken it right up. And I think I'm going to just throw in some like texture up here just to give some shadows around that really bright green. And tone it down a little bit. I can also add some different grasses and stuff. This is my finest brush in this set. It's number 4, and it's alright. It doesn't come to a super fine point, but you know, it gets the job done, I suppose. And I can take a few other greens. Make some little leaves. I think I would take some maybe cut down some larger rounds or oval wash or something, and maybe whittle the end so I can stick it in there. I really like having larger brushes, so that is a little bit of a hindrance to me to have such small brushes. I like having some. I mean, that's fine. That's why I think this will be, I think a lot of people prefer to have smaller brushes, especially beginners, so this might appeal to them more. This is their Virtuoso line, so it is their quote-unquote artist grade line, but it doesn't appear to be the same as the other Virtuoso paints, which I do have some to review, so I will get to that this summer and get those reviewed, hopefully sooner rather than later, so you'll be able to see those. There's also some grasses in the water here in my reference photos, so I think I'll go ahead and throw some of those in. So there's grasses in the water. That's weird. This looks so coastal, but I would think that you wouldn't get too much like grass action happening in the ocean with all the salt. But I mean, there's plants that grow in there, so I don't know. I'm not a botanist. Because I mean, in ponds and stuff, you know, you see that. I'm going to go back. Let's go to a little angle brush and see what kind of shapes we can get with that. That blue is supercharged. It's super dark. Which I don't mind. I'd rather have something really pigmented than weak, personally. Getting some texture here. Especially the closer to the foreground. My bristles splayed a little bit, so maybe I'll pick up some green and take advantage of that. Oh, come on, splay back again. Ah, it doesn't want to do it anymore. Do a little bit more modeling and sculpting on the rocks, and thought I would use a credit card scraper, but I didn't really need to. I didn't really have the paper wet enough at any point with the rocks to do that. I like to scrub on some texture sometimes, especially back here where I really don't want a lot of detail, but I might want to scrub in some texture. Alright, I think I'm going to call that good. Maybe a little bit of a shadow behind that rock there. But I think I'm going to call that good. So let's take our tape off and see what it looks like. And you can decide whether you want to paint this yourself. It's pretty easy. I mean, it's not a... I try to do a few kind of beginner projects when I'm doing these student grade watercolor reviews, because I feel like that's going to be a little bit more like what the typical audience for a palette like this would be painting. And if I run into any red flags on a painting like this, then it's good to know, I think. I had no problem controlling the color. These colors are vibrant though. If I show you the swatch here that I did, this is the colors, then with the glaze layer, then with the lifting layer. So the colors are very capable of being vibrant. I wanted to see how subtle I could get them and what the flow would be like in the sky. So just a few tests I like to do while I'm getting a review ready anyway. But in any event, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching. Till next time, happy crafting.